disciples also said unto them, Whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, but whosoever shall lose his life for my sake and the gospel, the same shall save it. What shall it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall man give in exchange for his soul? Whosoever therefore shall be ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him also shall the Son of Man be ashamed, when he cometh in the glory of his Father with the holy angels. Start in prayer. Lord, thank you for this day, and I thank you for these teens. Lord, I pray you would continue to do a mighty work among them. Lord, I pray you'd watch over and protect them as the summer's coming to a close and the next school year's coming up. Lord, I pray you prepare them for that. Pray for those that have graduated, that you will guide and direct them into their future. Lord, I pray for those that are especially entering their senior year, as many decisions are coming quickly at them of what they're going to do and what way they're going to pursue. Lord, I pray you'd watch over them and watch over this time tonight in your precious name. Amen. This passage comes right on the heels of Peter having one of the greatest up and down moments in the Scriptures. Back a few verses in verse 29, Jesus asked them a question, says, But he saith unto them, But whom say ye that I am? Jesus had asked his disciples, Who do people say that I am? And they had come up with, well, some people say you're Elijah the prophet, come back from the dead. Some people say you're John the Baptist, which is kind of funny because John the Baptist and Jesus were together at times. So kind of funny that he's both people, according to some people. And then Jesus finally comes and looks at him and says, well, who do you say I am? To his disciples, and his disciples respond. Peter, the leader, probably the spokesman of the disciples, responds saying, Thou art the Christ. Basically, Peter looks at Jesus and says, You're the Christ, you're the Messiah, you're the coming one, you're the one, the fulfillment of all the prophecy, you're the one we are to trust in, is what he's saying by that phrase, you're the Christ. And Jesus compliments him and says, Jesus gives him a great compliment, but then later on, down in the chapter, verse 31, he says, And he began to teach them, and the Son of Man must suffer many things, for he rejected the elders and the chief priests, the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days, and rise after 3 days. Basically, Jesus says right after that mountaintop experience for Peter, hey, you're the Christ. You're the man, basically, is what Peter was telling Jesus. You're the man! And Jesus then looks at him, starts teaching, saying, you know what? It's coming a time that I'm going to have to suffer. I'm going to have to die. I'm going to be beat of the chief priests and elders. I'm going to go to the cross. Jesus is telling his disciples in not so many words what's going to happen. And Peter looks at him, and Peter is always an interesting case study in the Bible. He says, and then he spake openly, and Peter took him and began to rebuke him. Isn't that kind of funny to think about? Here Peter, the follower, is taking the master Jesus aside. Jesus, you don't know what you're talking about. Don't be saying these things. It's not going to happen to you. Peter's convinced in his mind Jesus won't go to the cross. And Jesus looks at him, and probably had to be from Peter going from the mountaintop to the valley when Jesus looks at him and says, Get thee behind me, Satan. Thou savorest not the things that be of God, the things that be of men. Here Peter, his beloved disciple, his probably the spokesman of the disciples, is also Jesus looking at him and saying, Get behind me, Satan. You're thinking about things of this world, not things of God. You're so wrapped up in the here and now that you're not really understanding what's important. Then we go to the passage that we read earlier. So then, and when he called the people unto him, and the disciples also, he said unto them, Whosoever will come after me. So what does it cost to follow Christ? Here Peter, the leader, isn't understanding that. So Jesus is going to give a little teaching here. What does it take to be a true follower of Christ? The first thing you see is you need to deny yourself. You need to deny what you think is important in life. Jesus says, Whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. Basically, losing your life for Jesus. Giving up all authority, all control, all ability to say, hey, this is my life to live. I can do what I want with it. No one can tell me what to do. All those idiotic things because you really don't have much control anyways if you look at the world as it is, because you can't control circumstances any more than anybody else can. You think, yeah, it's my life to live, I'm going to do what I want. Well, you know what? Probably a lot of people in New Orleans thought that before Katrina came ashore. They had no control over that. All of a sudden, all their thought of how they're going to live is gone because it's washed away. And time after time, we've seen that through history. People that think they have their whole life to live, and doesn't take much more than one drunk driver coming on the road that you're on, and your life is gone. You don't have any control. It's an illusion. All you have is what God allows. So when Jesus says to lose your life and take up the cross, to follow Him, He's basically giving them the advice of, you know what, it's not yours anyways. Just give it to me. Give it to Christ. Take up that mantle and follow. Abandon what you think. Now, does that mean, for some of you here that might be slightly interested in horses, does that mean, okay, I'm going to give up all horses because I'm going to follow Christ? No. God will use that. God uses our loves, our desires. He uses that, and He takes what God has gifted you or put inside you of a love and uses that in ministry. I think in our church we have Francie Brown, who loves horses, that uses it to talk to people, to relate to people and share Christ. God takes what He's put in us, the interest, the loves that He put us in us, and uses it for His glory. Because who put it in us? God did. So when we deny ourselves, He gives us eternal riches that are far better than anything we have here. The second part of this is to take the cross. What's the exchange rate for your soul? If I were going to go to Mexico, which I did a few years ago, it's been a while, and I remember going with my dollar bills to get the pesos. That was cool. I loved it. I'd go give them $1, they give me 10 pesos. I thought, this is great. Too bad it didn't work the same way. I give 1 peso, get $10. When I came back, I could just keep going across the border until I was financially independent. But you give them the $1 and you get a stack of pesos. We took some money down there for the pastor there, and we debated about whether changing it all into pesos at the border. Our church had given that church $25,000 to help build their building. And I thought, wouldn't that be fun to put those all in pesos and carry a suitcase in? But that probably wouldn't be the safest thing to do. We gave him a little check. It wasn't quite as dramatic, but it was still fun. But you get something in return. Whenever you do that kind of an exchange rate, I give them the dollar, they give me the pesos. What Jesus is saying here, what shall it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Last night I was working at the Motel Days Inn here in town, and I got there, my boss, who's a successful man, he owns the motel, and he has a really nice Harley that I really, really wish he would just decide as a Christmas bonus. Highly unlikely. But he's a successful man. He met one of the guys that checked in that night was a friend of his that he grew up with back in Chicago. They both have that accent of Chicagoans, and they grew up in a tough, I guess, Streamwood, which is a really tough neighborhood of Chicago. They said you fight your way out of there. Well, this guy had pulled in with a BMW 730i.